Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. May I pour you some tea, sir?
Yes, sir, please. Thank you, sir. Let me do the same.
Thank you, sir.
감사합니다.
Germano.
Chupe. Delicious.
Every week it's different, and every week is good. I'd like to start out tonight. You know, I sent Kwanjanam a little tip saying I wanted to go back, way back tonight. And I don't know if we're going to have time because I've got a lot of good questions from people. So we'll see what happens, where we end up. I also wanted to spend a minute because I noticed at the front desk there are still copies of Hunlian, with this being, to me, the most auspicious, the current printing of Hunlian with Grandmaster Kyo-Hun Lee. As you know, he is the head of the World Taekwondo Instructors Academy, I guess you would call it. Is that
Exactly
correct,
right.
sir? Mm-hmm. And we've gone to see him many times. He has come here. He was here in November, was it, I believe?
I know, it seems like a century ago.
It does. And I will tell you that this man is spectacular. Having been in his dojang twice, having been here with him once, he's just the most wonderful person to talk to. His smile. And there's about 8 of these left on the desk. So if you are interested, please call Kwanjanam or Patty and ask them about holding you a copy, because this is something you're going to want to have. I have one. He signed mine. And actually, there's a picture of me in here. So if you're interested in a picture of me, please get a copy. But if you want to see, there it is. And if you want to see what Grandmaster Kyo-Hun Lee has to say, there are 10 pages of interview with him here. And I must say it is a very special edition. So get it while it's hot, while we have some left. So, sir, we have several questions, really good questions. And the first one comes from Bob Gallagher. And he is at the Westchester Taekwondo Academy, and he was on last year's trip to Korea. I'm sure you remember him well. And this is a great question. I really like this. And he says, sir, as a large, heavier guy, 220 pounds, 6'3", I actually enjoy grappling with some of the other big guys in the dojang. Often, we will back up into a wall, and then we will end up on the floor, morphing into wrestling or MMA-type moves. So my query is, in a real-world enclosed defense situation like a bar, restaurant, stadium, parking lot, train station, whatever, big guys without weapons end up on the ground grappling. Would you encourage or allow this type of training, perhaps as an unofficial or after-hours type class? And thank you so much.
Good question, Bob. And Bob. That's a multifaceted question. Number one, you'll never catch me saying that Taekwondo is the best martial art in the world, right? Many masters who feel strongly about their art will say that. Oh, my art is the best. That'll either be people who are very dedicated to their art or people who are totally ignorant about their art, who will claim that it's the best. So you'll never have me saying that, because while I firmly believe, and people have analyzed this and said so also, I feel that Taekwondo has solutions for all sorts of fighting situations, right? But it isn't a grappling art. You know, it's an upright, foot-hand way, right? You take something like Gracie Jiu-Jitsu, which is the way it should be pronounced, by the way, or any type of Jiu-Jitsu or wrestling, that's basically a grappling art where you will wind up on the ground. The question is, do you want to wind up on the ground?
Right.
Right? And ideally, that's not where we want to be, because most fights that go to the ground are troublesome. So we're taught in Taekwondo that, and Karate, that first strike must win, or first strike, swift kill, you know. So my answer to that, there's a short answer and a long answer. The shorter answer would be that you want to dominate a situation, analyze it first to realize the severity of it, so you don't make a false move that'll get you in legal problems, right? Make sure it's self-defense, but end it quickly, 1, 2, 3, so you don't go down on the ground, right? Would I allow this in my school as an adjunct to our training? And the answer, again, is something that we spoke about several weeks ago. How long does it take to learn your Taekwondo, right? And the answer is a lifetime, right? This is the reason that question came up was, would I prefer to try to study any other martial art? And I realize there's many people listening and many people watching who claim to have black belts in this art, and this art, and this art, and this art. And I don't take that away from them. But, you know, the thing is that to really dominate Taekwondo, to really learn Taekwondo in all its fullness, it would take a lifetime just to focus on that alone. That was my path. That's my choice, right? So I really don't find any place to corrupt what we're learning with other styles. And that may seem severe, but that's the way I feel. The longer answer is, if Taekwondo is learned, not in its sportive sense, but in its true traditional manner, you will find that there are many, many different strategies for fighting, with sweeping kicks, with dropping axe kicks while you're on the ground. If someone is there picking up your leg, dropping it down. Just one example. There are many, many solutions to all sorts of fighting situations in Taekwondo. I hope I answered your question, Bob. I want to try to be a little bit more succinct in my answer so you can get to more questions.
Sure. No, that's a great answer. I will never forget what Grandmaster Chun said once. And that is, and maybe you can correct me if I don't have this right, if the fight goes aerobic, you did something wrong.
Yeah, that's actually something we say. I didn't get that from him, but that's absolutely true. If you're fighting, for instance, in a competition match, right? Bob and I are both certified referees, right? And we used to actually referee in competition,
Yep.
and also participate in competition.
Correct.
But you would generally have a 2-minute rounds and then a break, you know, and then another 2-minute round or 3-minute rounds, depending. And that you would get really tired. Your legs and arms would feel like they're about 2,000 pounds, you know. And generally, depending on the vigor of the fight, you would throw a lot of techniques. Or if you watch Taekwondo in the Olympics, very few techniques actually, you know. The point is, you don't want to fight to go aerobic, is what I'm saying. You don't want it to string out over a period of 30 seconds, 40 seconds. And then you're dancing around, throwing punches and missing target and things like that. Again, it goes back to what I said originally, is you should be able, if you're adroit in your training, if you're practiced in your training and know what your target areas are, know the right tool, the right target to use that tool on, you should, and hopefully this would never happen, but you should be able to end the altercation right away, quickly. And, you know, many of us have been faced with situations like that where we've had to, and I can speak from experience to tell you it does work that way.
Yeah, I agree. I may have mentioned it before in my career as a paramedic in New York City. I've used my Taekwondo 4 times. Each time, it was so quick and so effective that nobody knew what happened. It was also instinctive, and it was fast. I wasn't ready for it. It just happened, and I just flowed with that moment. And it was over in less than 2 or 3 seconds. And I remember one time they came up to me and they said, "Are you okay?" And I'm like, "I'm fine, you better look at him." Because they saw him cock back to punch me, and a quick palm heel to his forehead sent him backwards. He landed in a wheelchair, and he had what we call a disconjugate gaze for a minute. It works very, very well. So I agree with what you say 100%, because it's worked for me 4 times. A little guy, 5'5", 170 pounds, doesn't matter. These guys, every one of these guys was bigger than I was. And I'll also add one other thing, that in my training, if you're a smaller person, whether you're a female or a guy, try doing Hoshin Suls with the biggest person in class. We had a student, Raul Ratza. He was my favorite partner because he was big. His hands would wrap around mine twice. And I knew that because it's technique, if I could learn to do the technique on him, I could do it on anybody. And that is absolutely true. It's been proven. So thank you for that answer, sir. We have another a question here from, I believe, a USTA member. Mm-hmm. His name is Fabian Hunlin and Hameline. And he says that he currently is a third Dan Kukiwan certified black belt. He has studied for over 20 years. When I moved there a couple of years ago, while understanding the need for a business model, I must say I was shocked to hear how some of these schools charged compared to the rest of the United States. Now, he's talking about New York City here. Mm. And he's asking you for some business advice here. I still registered in a school which asked me for $4,000 to test for third degree, third Dan, which I did not pass with them. A little after that, the master tried to scam me. And that is when I left. Being disappointed by most of the Taekwondo community in New York City, most of them are interested in making money, not transmitting the art, nor giving it back. I started to teach nonprofit for a while, and actually sent one of my students to your seminar last year. I am now abroad with my family, but I have been hearing the call more and more about opening a school when I reach 4th Dan Master. I wanted to ask you, is it crazy thought to open a Taekwondo school in New York City without charging sky-high prices, or is that renting a space is just too much expense? And can you give me some tips and milestones to reach in order to open a school? Thank you, Fabian.
That's a deep question.
Deep question.
Fabian, if you're on now and you're watching this show, I want to, first of all, apologize for Taekwondo for giving you such a bad experience. Unfortunately, it's not unique. These things happen not just in New York City, but across America. Some of the nightmare scenarios I get from email from parents and practitioners with some of the problems they've faced is really quite ubiquitous. You know, it happens often. First of all, that sounds like a terrible situation, and not to make light of it, but I like to call that take my dough rather than Taekwondo, you know. There are people, I'm not saying many, not little, but there are people in the quote-unquote industry that look at it strictly from a monetary standpoint. Both Master Adams and I have had experiences with that, with different masters. Because the martial arts are not regulated, right? They were not regulated like a hairstylist or a nail salon or some simple, situations like that. Even though we're teaching lethal skills, we're not regulated, Many people are afraid of that word regulation. They don't want to be regulated by the state or some other entity. Quite frankly, I would welcome it because, number one, we're teaching a legitimate curriculum here that is authentic in every way, that is comprehensive in every way, that is measurable, which means that you can see your progress as you go by. And of course, this is all predicated on the fact that you're putting your time in and your efforts. Your teachers, including myself and my instructors, are all certified. Now, what is the certifying entity in the world? Would be the Kukiwan and also the International Taekwondo Federation. Those would be two certifying entities. The other, of course, would be the Mudakwan, which is the school that we're associated with. And of course, I have to say the United States Taekwondo Association, which was under Grandmaster Chun for many years, and now is under my responsibility. But I can tell you a story about Grandmaster Chun once. We were speaking about an instructor who wanted to come to my school and teach. And I had gotten word that he was not a man of integrity, but he was capable. He knew how to teach, and he was coming from a school that had questionable ethics. So I went to Grandmaster Chun and I asked him what his thoughts were on that. And Grandmaster Chun, in his inimitable way, didn't answer it outright with an answer. He answered it in the Socratic method with a question, right? He questioned me. And he said, Doug, do you realize how much money I can make every year if I or accepted everybody who sent in for dance certification? And I said, no, sir, I really don't. And he gave me a number that was enormously high, that would have made him wealthy beyond measure if he had accepted every day. So what he was saying is he did not put dollars over quality. He just didn't do that. So the United States Taekwondo Association is that model. We follow that model. But unfortunately, not everybody does. Now, to defend New York City, because my great colleague, Grandmaster Pablo Alejandro, teaches there, the rents are high, much higher than in the suburbs, and certainly a lot higher than out in the Midwest. And you do need to remain solvent, just the way we do here at Chosun. But that sounds like an inordinately high amount to charge for a black belt. Multiple times too high, right? I'm not sure who this teacher was or what he felt his credentials were, or what value to charge that kind of money. To open up a Taekwondo school is crazy. It's a crazy thing to do for a lot of reasons. One, there are not a lot of people who truly want to study Taekwondo in its fullness. They want to have fitness, they want to learn a few kicks and a few punches, but the question is, do they really want to get involved in true Taekwondo? And that's up to you, how deeply your curriculum would have to be, right? Many times we have people start the school here at Chosun, and they'll stay for a few weeks and they'll say, wow, I never expected it to be this deep. I just wanted to work out, and so they'll quit. And that's a pretty high percentage, you know. But the ones who stay are very special people indeed, and are people who want to learn true Taekwondo. I feel our tuition is reasonable. I feel our rates for black belt is reasonable and pursuant to Taekwondo and Kukiwan charges. So starting your own school is a calling. It's a mission. You have to be able to take criticism. You have to be able to have some type of a cushion to begin with, because you're not going to make a lot of money. First of all, you're not going to make a lot of money, period, unless you follow that Taekwondo or Take My Do method, right? You have to walk a razor's edge between commercial solvency and ethical teaching. And that's a very hard, difficult thing to do. You have to renew yourself every day. You have to ask yourself if you're going to go with contracts. I don't. I don't feel that it's fair to ask someone to pay 2 or 3 years in advance when they don't know what their situation's going to be like. And then, again, it's a double-edged sword. You don't know if they're going to be worthy of your teaching. So once they sign a contract, they're yours and you're theirs. So you have to make that determination. I would be glad to discuss it with you at length. We talk about it a little bit in one of my books, Starting a Taekwondo School. But it's a conversation that would take several hours, and even that would just be touching the surface. So if you wish to discuss that, please call us here at the school, and I'll talk to you about it at length.
So if one of our students or somebody in the USTA did have that calling to be a teacher, what should they start thinking about in order to go down that road?
Okay. You asked something, but I don't think you asked what you meant, right? Being a teacher and being a school owner are two different things, right? If you want to be an instructor, if you want to be a teacher, then that can be done within the confounds of your own domain, which is our school.
Right.
And, of course, we've gotten that request a lot, and many of you who are watching, I hope watching, or should be if you're an instructor, have shown that desire, and we have a path to excellence, to become a teacher, we have an instructor program.
Yes.
Right? Where we teach you how to become a teacher and certify you as a teacher. You know, a lot of schools, once you attain your black belt, will just automatically assume you're going to teach. That doesn't make you a good teacher. In other words, you can be the best shortstop on the Yankees, but it doesn't make you a good manager, right? Or vice versa. If you're a great manager, it doesn't make you a great player. So just because you've attained black belt, or more importantly, just because you've attained fourth dan, which legitimately puts you in line to have your own school or to certify, it doesn't make you a great school owner, and it doesn't make you a great teacher, right? So the question is, do I want to be a teacher? That's number one. Do I want to be a school owner? That's a whole nother question. And if someone does decide they want to do that, if a person came to me in the USDA and said, I'm looking to start my own school, can you help me? The answer is absolutely yes. We can even provide you with a curriculum that will make you successful, provided you have the will and the determination and the perseverance to go the hard road.
Right. That's very right. I've often thought that the reason why our students stay is because we have such a rich curriculum. I almost want to go get the book and show it to anybody who's watching from the USTA. There's every belt with its basic techniques, its kicking techniques, its stepping techniques, its forms, its il-sushis and hoshin-suls and breaking techniques. I mean, I just named 7 right there, and I don't think I named them all. So, and it goes. And then first dan, you go again from the beginning all the way to second dan. And third dan, same thing. You go through a progression again, each one learning new techniques that you have not done before. It never stops. There's no horizon on.
Right now, our curriculum is written out and planned out to 7th dan.
Wow.
So it goes all the way up to Grandmaster. Each dan level, you test every 3 months for a stripe, and you're taught new forms. You're taught new one-step sparring. You're taught new hoshin-sul techniques, which are self-defense techniques. It's not something haphazard. Everything, again, as Master Adam said, is written out. So the curriculum is a living thing. It's alive, and it's practiced by all students of the school.
That's correct. I was surprised when I knew that Grandmaster Chun did not accept everybody. I knew that. I did not realize he only took 20%.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
That's amazing.
Yeah, it's amazing. You would be surprised to see, and I get to see it now, people sending in requests for certification for different Dan ranks and what their qualifications are or lack of qualifications are. Also, they had fallen prey to teachers who have absolutely no certification whatsoever, not even a good intent to teach, and therefore they were not good students, but it wasn't their fault, right? So Grandmaster Chun kept the standards of the USTA very high, and naturally, because I made a promise to him, I feel incumbent upon doing the same.
Perfect. And you mentioned that if you were a USTA school, that you would be willing to help with a tuition, a curriculum.
The USTA curriculum is already done. It's available to anybody who becomes a USTA school. The cost of that, people would say, oh, it's probably, look, there are organizations out there that charge $4,000 or $5,000 just to open the doors for you, right? And then they'll offer you these plans that are not based so much on martial arts skill, but on business practice. And I don't begrudge them for it, and there's many people who are not good business people or have no experience in business and marketing who have to have some kind of a boilerplate. So they go to these organizations. But in the long term, there's really no martial content to it. The USTA is just the opposite. You know, unfortunately, I was involved in business before I became a school owner. And so while I'm not saying I'm the best businessman, I have a sense of how to merge the two. martial content and business sense, to make it successful enough where you can earn a living, where you can pay your bills, where your wife will be proud of you or your husband will be proud of you, and your accountant. And meanwhile, you will be teaching authentic Taekwondo, real Korean Taekwondo. And again, it's a very fine line. If you become a USTA school, I believe, I have to check my records, but the cost is about $200 a year.
Very reasonable.
Not as much as a couple of bottles of good Cabernet.
Yeah.
And you get the curriculum, and we'll help you with the curriculum. Then if you wish to certify yourself as a teacher, and you should, that's an extra fee, but it's very small. Then we ask you to enroll your students. If you're going to be a USDA school, you have to enroll your students. Now, what's the value of that? $30 a year, right? $30 a year. That means you can attend certain seminars. You can become eligible for rank certification. We can help you with the curriculum, many different values, you know.
And they can go to tournaments as well, USTA.
When we hold tournaments, they can, of course, and they can also visit other USTA schools if they're traveling.
Right.
So there's many benefits.
And you're saying that with that school founding fee, the curriculum comes with it?
Curriculum comes with the school fee, yes.
That's unbelievable.
Yes, it is.
I would expect you $10,000, $20,000.
Yes, I know what people expect. The phone calls I get from certain people wanting me to act as an expert witness because they're suing their ex-master or something like this, and they want me to sit in the courtroom and give expert testimony. And many times I say, no, I can't, because I don't know what your situation is, nor do I want to besmirch a master who may have good intentions, and the student itself they're not worthy, right? So I don't do that, but I've been asked many times to do that.
And Fabian, I would encourage you to go back, and I want to say it was the second show that we did where Kwanjanim did talk about the story of how this school came to be and what was going on in his mind and the process that he was fulfilling in creating this school. And I think you might find that to be of great interest. I believe it was the second show.
You know, I say starting a martial arts school is crazy. It's not crazy. It's one of the greatest things you can possibly do. It's the best thing I ever did in my life, besides marrying my wife and having my children, you know. And I mean that. It was one of my best decisions. But it was a decision based on the universe. It was something that was meant to be, and I'm convinced of that every time I wake up in the morning. I'm very fearful right now with the crisis that we're going through. Many martial arts schools will go out of business because we cannot get together. We cannot hold classes in the dojang.
Right.
We've tried to find a solution by having our live stream classes, which have been very successful. But regardless, we've lost many, many students. Of course, it's my hope that my students will continue to stay loyal to the school, continue paying their tuition. But I don't ask them to pay tuition unless they feel there's an equanimity there, you know. And what we're doing with these classes, we hold 3 classes a day, generally, 6 days a week. And what we're giving, I hope, is valuable enough so that the students will pay their tuition. This is a bad situation, but in an everyday occurrence, not everybody is suited for the martial arts. So you really have to fight to keep students, right? Because they're going to lose interest, or they'll become discouraged, or there'll be some kind of disagreement between you and them. This is not Asia. This is not Korea in the 1940s and 50s. The mindset of the Western practitioner is different from that of the Eastern practitioner. So that's something that you have to understand. And Grandmaster Chun had to alter the way he taught. He found this out early on because his students were leaving. They couldn't handle the way he was taught in Korea. So he had to alter the way he was teaching. And then his school grew, right? So you have to understand the mindset of the Western practitioner if you want to be successful. That's one thing. And then you have to give the balance of discipline and understanding and compassion, which is also difficult, you know. Unfortunately, there are always people who are going to have a sense of entitlement, right? That's the hardest student to deal with, you know. Fortunately, in Chosun, the great bulk of our students are thirsty for Taekwondo, and they want to learn the right way, what I call the right way. Not every school fits every type of expectation. One school down the block may be more attuned to somebody's desires than my school. So you're not going to please everybody, that's for sure. But those that you do please, and if you can teach it with ethics, and you can make a comfortable living with it where you pay your bills, it's the best situation in the world, and I wouldn't trade it for anything.
That's a great answer. Let me just ask you a question of something you said that you may not know the answer to this. But when you talked about Kwanjanam only accepting 20% of those who came to see him, any idea what he used to judge?
Absolutely, because I had to go through it. When I offered myself to him as a student, what I had to do at that time, this is going back a long time ago, I had to provide a videotape of all my skills, all the forms I knew. If I knew staff forms, I showed some of those. All my self-defense techniques, all my one-step sparring, my academic contributions to the art, which were small at that point.
Wow. Wow.
And I had to describe to him in person in a 3-hour interview just what my intentions were. And meanwhile, he was gauging me. He was gauging my character at the same time. I get choked up when I think about it now because he's gone. He wanted to know what type of person I was. Was I a person worthy of his teachings? You know, and so he wanted to know what type of person I was. He wanted to know what my technical attributes were. He wanted to see what my sidekick looked like. And then it was a good month of training on his mat for him to actually see what was real. And only then would he come up to me and say, okay, you can become a student.
Wow.
This is how much I'm going to charge you, and you can only come once a week. It was a lot of money back then, right? For one class a week.
Wow.
After a couple of weeks, he said, okay, Doug, you can come twice a week. Same money, right? And then after a few weeks after that, he said, you can come as often as you like. And he goes, same money, right?
Wow.
About 6 months into it, he says, Doug, I want you to teach for me. Well, that was the day I almost passed out, right? To be asked by Grandmaster Chun to teach at his institute was an honor that was unbelievable, you know. Subsequently, after that, we became very close. I became, even though there were students there who were much longer than I was, we became very close. We've written books together, articles together. He would ask me to write all his speeches. One day he asked me to write a speech for a wedding that someone was getting married and asked him to speak. And he said, you have to write the speech for me for my wedding. I said, sir, I don't even know the bride and groom. How am I going to write your speech? Well, I went ahead and wrote a speech for him, and he gave it, and he said it was excellent. So we became very close. I miss him terribly.
Yes, you sure did. Yeah, I
miss him terribly.
I understand that completely. So, moving on to some questions from Instructor Radakovitz. Thank you again, Michelle. And yes, Ginny and I are doing well, thank you. We're in our new temporary home, so that's a positive every day.
I don't know if you know it or not, but a tree fell on Master Adams' house not long ago.
Yes, and we were forced to move immediately.
As if the situation here is not bad enough.
It just couldn't have happened at a worse time, but we're dealing with it. So every day, we just make the decisions that have to be made today, at that moment. Don't worry about the future. Don't think about the past. Be present. That would be my advice to everybody during this time. So, Instructor Radakovitz asks, where did the sword form Wihun originate?
That's a good one. Wihun means danger, okay? And there was a time when I went on a tour of Korea, a training tour, that I call the CIA tour. And that's because it was secretive. You didn't know what you were doing from moment to moment. I didn't sponsor it. I just went. And it was held by a man with high intentions who really meant the best for us. But there was really no solid itinerary. What happened is we flew in to Kimpo International. That was before Incheon was built. Got on a bus and we went to a bar. That was the first thing we did. And everybody started drinking, and then it was one episode after another. But at one point, we were sleeping on linoleum floors in his friends' apartments with no furniture. It was nothing like our tours where we go. And
they're first class.
First class tours, right. I wouldn't trade it. It was a great tour, but we wound up no one knew where we were going, and I can't even tell you where it was. But we wound up on this bus going down these little dirt roads. And this is see, if you ever go to Korea, you're going to find logarithmic growth. Because each time you go, you see growth that is doubles and triples in quality and size. When I first started going there were really no throughways. So everything was like dirt roads and things like this. So our bus took us down these dirt roads way outside. So he stopped the bus, backed up, and we had to get off and cross this little bridge into this village there was huts, thatched huts is what they were. And we were assigned 3 men to a hut, and we carried what little luggage we had across this bridge, and the floors were dirt, and that's where we were to sleep. And we did that. The next morning we woke up and it was misty, and there was a training hall that was there was nothing but an open air training hall with a wooden floor and a covering of canvas over it. And the master there taught us this sword form, and he told us it was Wihon sword form. So this is where it came from. It came from my first trip to Korea. Its origin, I really don't know, whether it was Chinese or Okinawan or whether it was pure Korean. I have a feeling because it was named Wihon that it probably was a Korean sword form. But that's where I learned it.
Oh, that's a great story. Is that the story we used to divide the food into 2 different categories?
Moving and non-moving, yes. Well, that's still true today.
Yeah. We had moving food, I remember.
Yeah. Food is very fresh in Korea.
Literally. This dovetails the question we had before. How was the Chosun curriculum chosen? You pull it out of a hat?
Yeah, right, sure. That's a good question too. Thank you for asking that, because it's complex. If you look at Grandmaster Chun's school, what he taught was a treasure chest full of pumsek, right? All the jewels in the crown, Jian, Shipsu, Balpek, you can name it, original choreo. But when it came to one-step sparring, there were only 5, right, il-sushis. What we know in our black belt curriculum as the first 3 in white belt and the second 2 in the first 3 at white stripe and the second 2 at yellow stripe.
Right.
What happens afterward in yellow stripe, orange stripe, and so on and so forth comes from his book. It's just that the teachers never taught that segment of his curriculum. It was just left in his books. So if you get if you're not advancing, but if you get Taekwondo, a Korean martial art, his first big book, all of the il-sushis are there. It's just that they were never taught. So our black belt curriculum, first dan curriculum, from white stripe to red stripe, is all the curriculum in his book, Korean martial art, and some from advancing in Taekwondo. Our color belt curriculum is a Mudokwan curriculum that I learned when I first started practicing. What was learned in Champion Taekwondo,
Right.
Our second dan, third dan curriculum is a mixture of Cheongdokwan techniques and Odokwan techniques, right, from ITF, and also Mudokwan techniques. Now, a lot of these I learned when I was in Korea, right? A lot of them I learned from teachers who fashioned these Taekwondo techniques. Or not fashioned them, but taught them in their dojangs, right? So the important thing to know is our curriculum is all authentic Taekwondo. It's not mixed martial art. I'm not borrowing from jujitsu, or I'm not jutsu, or I'm not borrowing from some other style. It's all authentic Taekwondo, straight ahead. At fourth dan, as you alluded to, you go back and you study everything from white belt on up to third dan. So you're rehashing, relearning the curriculum. At fifth dan, a whole nother set of techniques are taught, and they're all authentic Taekwondo.
I did not know.
It's a lot of research. It was years and years of research, and the curriculum is copywritten because of that research, because I personally put it together. Did I make it up? No, nothing was made up. That's a lie. There's one illushi I made up, one, because the other one did not, the one that was existing, didn't really answer the need of the particular belt stripe that it was at. But other than that, everything is from Grandmaster Chun, everything is from Chung De Kwan, Mu De Kwan, and O De Kwan.
I'm amazed.
So was Grandmaster Chun when I showed him the curriculum.
I bet he was. I mean,
He said, "This is what you teach?" I said, "Yes, sir."
I've been here for more than 20 years, and I never knew that. I didn't know that.
Thank you, Instructor Radakovich, for asking.
That's amazing. So, Chung De Kwan and
Yes. You know, I and several of my students visited, you were one of them, by the way, Bob. We visited Boston back in 2001.
yes,
To Yang's Martial Arts School,
Yes.
which is my publisher, YMAA. And Master Yang taught a style of Kung Fu and a style of Qigong, you know. And we would ask him a question about Qi, and he'd say, "Oh, I can't answer that." And we would kind of look at each other when we're at the seminar, and we'd say, "Well, can he not answer it because he doesn't want to tell us, or because he doesn't know?" And you know, you wouldn't really get an answer. You go, "Sir, why is the Qi flow?" "Oh, I can't tell you." You know?
Yes.
So I could have answered that question about the curriculum that way. I could have said, "Oh, I can't tell you," you know, because either I didn't want to tell you where it came from, or I wanted to be inscrutable, you know. But that's no way to be. You know, if a person is paying their tuition, frankly, they have every right to know what the curriculum is based on. And look like we're running out of time here.
Yeah, Gene Orlovsky, I will get to your question next week. I apologize. Forget about what I wanted to cover tonight. That's not going to happen. I thank you again for, I don't know where the time goes when we do this.
Bob and I, Master Adams and I, really enjoy this class.
Yes.
It's nothing we ever did before.
Never.
I hope you don't feel like I'm just pontificating, you know, just talking nonsense. I'm trying to answer some questions as valuable means as I can, and please keep the questions coming in.
Please.
Because Master Adams, I know, is very sincere about this class that he created, and I can tell you that once the crisis passes, and because it eventually will, I don't know if it's going to be days, months, years, we will still have this. This will still be broadcasting this. And so I hope it'll develop in different ways in a very positive way.
I couldn't have asked for anything more enriching to my study of the art. It's just fantastic. And your breadth and knowledge of this art is just renowned. So thank you for that. Thank you so much. Thank you so very much for all that you have given all of us here. And I thank you all for tuning in and absorbing this. And I look forward to seeing you again next week. And I hope to see you in the streets real soon. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Kwanjino.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
See you in class tomorrow.